Well, Rafael, I'm excited to have you here. So, for everyone out there, we are now chatting with Rafael Garcia. He is the owner of Gallo Logistics, an Amazon delivery service provider. And as you know, if you've been watching our episodes, we really want to talk about the entrepreneurial experience, what Rafael has gone through and experienced at Gallo, how technology plays into things, and also understanding more about his framework for doing business, especially in this really, I would say, high stress, somewhat competitive space. So super excited to have you here, Rafael. Would love for you to kind of just say hi and just talk a little bit about yourself, and then we'll start launching into some of the questions and just have a general discussion about running a DSP. That sound good?
Sure, sure. Thank you so much for the invitation, Robert. Very happy to be here, sharing the story with you. To give a little bit of context and background about myself, I graduated from law school in Venezuela, and I've been always, kind of an entrepreneurial. I opened my first business. It was a car wash back in Venezuela in 2012. At that time, I remember it was, the Venezuelan economy wasn't doing that bad. It was actually, pretty stable at the time. And the business was thriving. It was doing really good. We were servicing, anywhere from 30 to 60 cars a day. Take into account that this is not a automatic car wash. It was hand washed, and it was detailing, and it was polishing. We were doing all sorts of services to the vehicles, and we were doing really good. Obviously, situation got worse, and that's one of the main reasons why I decided to probably have another have more options, and look into to emigrate, and I ended up coming to the United States. When I came here, I was always looking for opportunities to grow and to develop. And one of the things that caught my attention was that Amazon was launching this program called the DSP program, and I applied to it. I have currently Gallo Logistics, which is a logistics company that's been active since 2019, and it's been very thrilling to have the opportunity to have this company, and grow in the way that we've grown. When we started out with 5 routes, 10 routes. We're currently doing on average like 35 routes, and we have a very strong team, and I'm happy for the opportunity, and for the people that I've been able to meet in this line of business.
Yeah, I mean, Rafael, I went to Ignite this year, and I think I saw you there. Pretty, and for everyone that doesn't know, Ignite is the Amazon DSP conference in Vegas, where all the DSPs get together, talk about best practices and the advancement of the program. And it's been, from my understanding, especially from those visits, it seems like it's almost life changing joining the Amazon or the delivery service provider program. So, what has your experience been like? Because it's interesting, Rafael. So, you came over, you had a law degree there. Did you think about moving forward and and practicing law in the U.S., or was it
Well,
your
I
thought?
did. I did start practicing law here when I came here. I was like a foreign legal consultant for a pharmaceutical company. I worked in house for that company for a while, and it was good. It was fun, but it's not what really brings a fire in me. To be honest with you, like I'm passionate about building new projects, and growing, and helping people grow as well. So I saw that the opportunity there was very limited. And to answer your question, yes, I think this is like a life changing program. This has been like the most exciting project I've had, in my career. I've not only had the opportunity to have a car wash, I also had a remodeling company. I had a food business. I've been all over the place, to be honest with you. But this program and this opportunity has been life changing. It's amazing, what the opportunities that it brings and it opens, and I'm very happy that I took the chance.
And I mean, it's amazing, Rafael. But it's interesting because like going from the businesses you were running to pretty much like a logistics business, what were the kind of the feelings you had starting out, and your thoughts about like were you doubting yourself? What were your concerns about
You
jumping
know
into?
what? I was really worried because I really didn't know very well how would I, run payroll, all these ins and outs of doing business in the U.S. I had a previous experience with having businesses in Venezuela and in Panama, but not here. This was basically my first experience, and definitely there was a lot of preoccupation on what were the steps, like how to start a company, how to register the company within the IRS to get the FEIN, how to hire employees, how to pay the employees once I hire them. Would I pay them? And I didn't know this at the time, but I can pay them, not within the program, but you have two types of employees here in the US. You have 1099 and W-2s. Obviously 1099s are more of a contractor based employees or whatnot, but there were a lot of ins and outs that I didn't really know much about. But that wasn't a deterrent, really. It was more of a fear of trying not to not do it right. But at the end, I knock on wood, but everything worked out.
Yeah, that's awesome. Um, what kind of support did you get, Rafael? Was it friends and family that supported you? The program? Just trying to understand, like, where did you get most of your insight from? I mean, there was no
To be
AI.
honest with you, the program. So when
Okay,
I started out in 2019, and I think it's changed since then, but we had to do a training first in Seattle, and in this training, I got to meet a lot of other DSPs like myself, and sharing feedback among each other, and supporting each other. That was for me the most important part of it. Yeah, that's what helped me really kickstart this project, and get it up and running without any issues or any delays. It was that feedback between other DSPs, and how the program is set up and how they help you out. That was the most fundamental help that I got.
that's amazing. Was there ever a moment early on when you thought I might have made a mistake, and what happened next after that?
Not really. I'll
Not
be
really.
honest with you. I was
Okay.
all in. I mean, I since I started out, I love the program, and I was happy to make the change. Uh, I never doubted. Like I never had second thoughts about it when I started it. I was just a little bit concerned, whether it was gonna play out or not as I expected it, and it turned out to be better than what I realized.
That's awesome. Um, so what surprised you most about running a DSP that people outside the industry would never guess?
There's many things. There's many things. First, it's like you said, it's a very stressful job. You have 33, 35 people on the streets. You have to be mindful of their safety and the safety of the people around them. The most important thing is that you want your drivers to come back at the end of the day and go back to their houses with their families and whatnot. So for me, that's one of the most important aspects of it, and it does bring up a lot of stress, at least to me,
Yeah,
because there's just so much that you can control, and we always try to make sure that our drivers are being safe and whatnot. But accidents happen,
yeah,
so that's one of the things that really stresses me out the most. One of the other things, that I probably at the beginning I found a lot of a little bit challenging, but not anymore, is that it this line of business requires you to constantly update your staff. It's it's a very there's a very high turnover rate for your employees, so you have to constantly be hiring, evolving, making sure you are correctly staffed. And when I started out, I remember I was just hiring anybody that was interested in the job. I wasn't very
Yeah.
selective
Yeah.
when it came to just making sure that I had a good driver. Now I'm a little bit more selective. I try to make sure that whoever I hire is going to be a good fit for the position, and that they understand what they're getting into, because most of the times the candidates don't realize what they're getting into. It's just this is a they think this is an easy job. I can do this. It's a good pay, but they haven't realized all the things that they have to do during the day, and what the responsibilities are going to be. So once you start trying to making sure that you find candidates that are really aware of that situation, the staff and the people that you hire becomes better.
And so jumping off of that point, so what was it like in the beginning of the company with the staff you had versus the understanding that the quality control you needed to put in place? And was there like a certain point where you were like, wow, I really need to change this staff? Like it's just not working out the way I thought. And also, Rafael, when with yourself, it's interesting because one of the podcasts I did, the individual had worked in the company beforehand as a driver and worked his way up. So he kind of knew what he was getting into. How did you learn about what the challenges were for the driver for yourself so that you could then help them understand?
Well, it's funny because when I started out, I remember I was understaffed. I didn't have enough drivers, so I had to constantly go out and take a route.
Yeah.
I did it myself. I wasn't the type of person that was gonna be leaving a route behind because I just didn't have enough people. So I just jumped into the vehicle. I had to run a route, and that really helped me understand a lot about the challenges on the road and what I needed to look for into a driver. uh, Obviously, at the time, I probably didn't internalize that thought. I was just looking to
Just doing
to
the
get
job.
people on board and make sure that I had enough drivers each day to cover the demand. And to be honest with you, what happened at the beginning was many of the employees that I was hiring, they weren't lasting even a week,
Wow.
because
Yeah.
they were used to a desk job, sitting
Yeah.
behind a desk doing clerical job and administrative job and whatnot. And you know this is a very physical job. You have to be out on the road 10 hours a day, delivering this amount of packages. It can be it can take a physical toll on you if you are not mentally prepared for it. And for me, that was the main issue, and the main problems that I had when I was just hiring anybody that wanted to apply. They were just leaving and not really giving it a chance, and I was losing people faster than I could hire.
Crazy.
So one of the first things that I started to do is, I try when I'm sourcing candidates, one of the things I look for is what industry do they come from. If I know they come from the construction industry, that's also a tough industry. I know that these uh, candidates are gonna understand the physicality of the job. I try to look obviously for if they have experience doing deliveries. That's amazing. Even some of the candidates that apply, the only experience that they have is doing Uber or doing Uber Eats or Instacart. But if it's something that they do daily, I know they're used to long hours of work. I know they're used to driving. They're used to, getting in and out of the vehicle to, go get the food and go back. So they kind of understand what they're getting into. And that really has been a game changer for me in terms of staffing.
Yeah. And Rafael, I mean, just as we're on staffing, because I find it interesting. Among the users of Happy Fleet, you're one of the lucky ones who seems to have a high volume of candidates.
Correct.
Versus, you go to like rural locations, and some of them they're like, I just need candidates. Like, I don't need about filtering. So what is it like for somebody who has a high volume of candidates? What is the priority for you when you're searching through these candidates? Like, how do you decide the good ones versus the ones that you
So
might
as you
not?
were saying, I have the luxury of being selective. I know more, a lot of my peers don't have that luxury because they're in areas where, barely any people apply. In my case, I have a lot of applicants. So again, for me, one of the first things I look into is what experience do they have? Have they worked for another delivery company before? Have they worked in any of the industries that I kind of think might be might be physically challenging? And if they do, then I start looking also into how long have they last in their previous jobs, because you kind of see through the resume, like if they've been jumping through job and job and job. That's you know I One of the things that I can guess is that they're not very stable at their
Right.
job, and your staff is the heart of your company, and the more time they have with you, the better, because they already understand the process, they already understand the way you work, they care more about the company. So for me, trying to hire somebody that's going to be a good fit and is going to stay long is my priority.
Yeah.
And those are some of the particularities that I look into when I'm doing a hire.
Yeah. No, it's great. So let's move more into like the operations and what that experience is like. So what does a normal day actually look like for you? And I do wonder what it looked like in the beginning versus what it looks like now. So I don't know if you can give that comparison as well.
Yeah, definitely. So at the beginning, I was a lot more hands-on, in the meaning that I didn't have any managers, dispatchers, or anything. I launched this company by myself with a partner that I knew wasn't gonna be much involved. He would help out the weekends, but that was it. So I was basically doing every task on my own. I was doing the back office part of the job, if you want to call it that way, whereas I was doing the hiring, onboarding of the employees.
Yeah.
I was processing payroll. I was handling, claims, insurance claims and whatnot. And then I was also doing the operations part. I was making sure that I had enough drivers to cover the routes, making sure that every driver had all the tools they needed to work properly that day. And I would go to the lot, do a stretching exercise with them, do a
Okay.
stand up,
Yeah.
try to convey a message that I on something that I needed to work on. Say for example, I needed to work on packages that were delivered, but the customer said that they didn't receive them. So some of those metrics that for us are important. So I would talk to them and let them know what we needed to fix, what was the main errors that they were doing or mistakes, and how to fix them. And then I would go back to them with them to the station, help them load the vehicles. And once they were out, I was just tracking the entire day. And I would get calls nonstop every single hour. I have this issue. Hey, I have that problem. Hey, something happened to me. And trying to find ways around it, and obviously aid and assist the drivers that were out on the road so that they would have a successful day. And at the end of the day, they would come back, return the vehicle, return all the tools that we give them to properly work. And I would ensure that the vehicles had no damages, make sure that they had a proper and successful day. And if they had any issue, I would try to see what was the issue, how to solve it, and how to avoid happening, that the same issue happened in the future. I was doing all that by myself. And
Jeez.
now obviously that lasted, to be honest with you, the entire operations I was there for 2 months and I was burning out. I had
Uh,
to, obviously, the first thing I did, I hired an HR manager.
yeah.
That HR
Did you
manager
find
helped.
someone? Did you find someone who was already experienced, or did you have to kind of bring them
Well,
in?
that person had experience on HR. I cannot tell you that they were 100% experienced on running payroll on all the tasks that we need to do,
Got it.
but they had a little bit of experience, so they adapted really quick. And after, I want to say, 5 months of doing also the operation part by myself, I did hire. Well, not hire. I promoted two of my best and most proactive drivers to dispatchers,
That's awesome. Yeah.
and then I was able to have like the operational, manager role, and I would just supervise them and make sure that they were doing their job correctly and whatnot. Today is more of the same, but I do have now, like, I want to say, an ops manager who is very well versed into the program. He knows everything, all the ins and outs. He's probably, a person similar to the one that you interviewed last week or last weekend, I don't know, that was a driver, and
Got it.
it's
Who's on
now
that, like the ladder? Yeah.
correct.
Oh,
It doesn't mean I'm not involved in the business. Of course, I'm still a lot. I have a lot of involvement into the business, but I can focus on more important things rather than the mechanicals of the job.
wow. I know that's amazing. I mean, and it's like you build your freedom. That's what I like about it, and then it gives you the
Correct.
ability to focus and make things just
Correct.
better for everybody, right? So
Correct.
great. Um, so what is the hardest part of running a DSP that no one talks about?
Insurance.
Insurance. Okay.
Insurance. And I know it's a short answer, but it's the truth. So
Yeah.
I don't know how it works in the rest of the states of the US, but here in Florida, insurance has been, I think, my number one pain point since 3 or 4 years ago. I'm lucky to be in a captive, but that doesn't mean that I don't have pain points. Here, every little tiny bitty accident, it's turns into a big claim, and it's almost like a habit here. I don't know why does that happen, even if there's no injuries or whatnot. The claims are huge, and obviously insurance companies are paying a big toll because of it, and they're
Right.
raising the prices. But I do have to be very, very, very careful with accidents, and I talk to my team every single day about it. I tell them, listen, I really appreciate you guys, and I hope you appreciate the job that you have. And if you want to make sure that this company is still in operations, 2 3 years from now, you have to be very careful when you're driving, because any small accident is gonna be um, a huge problem for us.
Yeah. And it's interesting because I think you see it too. Like when you drive around now, because I spend a lot of time going from San Francisco to LA, and then I consult for a company in Arizona, and almost all the billboards now are accident injury attorneys. I mean, it's like I don't even understand it. Like I
I
don't know
was
how.
I was gonna mention that, not just the billboards. Like, if you're listening to Spotify, or to, yeah, with ads, which I do, or any other radio program or whatnot, most of the ads are attorneys,
Yeah,
accident
personal injury.
attorneys.
Like it's crazy. I'm amazed by it. And I
It
mean, I've
is.
heard that some of the changes, like I know Uber's trying to make changes to try and lobby for new laws to try and prevent that because of the litigiousness of our society and how it's increasing insurance premiums. Is there a specific type of insurance that's the worst for you?
Uh, n- Both are really, really tough. Like, auto insurance and workers' comp insurance are really tough to handle. I mean, I'm lucky enough that I do not have many workers' comp claims. Most of my drivers are really careful when they're working, and one of the reasons why I stretch with them in the mornings is trying to make them aware and avoid any injuries during the work. But auto has become increasingly tough to handle.
Yeah.
Increasingly tough to handle. It's like again, every single accident turns into this huge claim, and for me, one of the most frustrating points is we are very proactive when there's an accident. We try to obviously do everything that we are required to do by contract, but not only that, we go above, we go beyond that point, and make sure that we capture what the what happened with the accident. We take videos, we take pictures, we report it immediately to an insurance company. We follow up with the law officers to get the report as soon as possible, so to get this claim done. uh, but one of the things that I find more frustrating is that I've, I've been part of the accident in both ways. I've been on the guilty part, and I've been on the part that has been hit.
Yeah.
And there was this time when one of my vehicles got hit. I got
Wow.
totaled, and we weren't responsible. But the other party didn't have enough coverage to cover the total loss, and our insurance company is like, it's better to let it go.
Wow. To just let it go. So
Well, I
does
mean, they charge up till the amount that
yeah,
the
yeah, yeah.
insurance is gonna cover, but after that, we
You
have to
cover.
cover the rest.
Yeah.
And again, it's like when we are at fault, there's these huge claims that they're trying to put upon us, and not all of them fly, obviously,
Yeah.
and again, with the insurance company that I have, they do a very good job in retaining a lawyer to represent you and whatnot. But it's amazing what they're trying to look for. But when it's a particular car, it's not a company. It's just a person driving who is at fault. There's not a lot you can do.
Yeah. No. Yeah. I wish you the best of luck for all those, Rafael. I know it's a difficult one. Um,
So to be honest with you, that's the most difficult part of the DSP insurance. Like, we are constantly at risk. If
right.
and that's why I think overall the DSP community has been so aware of of this issue, and making sure that your drivers are being safe on the road, and that they're doing what they're supposed to be doing when they're behind the wheels, because it does minimize a lot the number of accidents that you can have. If you have a strong culture of safety, that really has a big impact on minimizing the risks that your drivers run out on the street.
And Rafael, do you use telematics devices in the vehicles too?
Yes, we do.
Yeah. Okay. Gotcha. Um, how do you balance, excuse me, people leadership with hitting operational targets?
Can you explain in what way?
Yeah, so you have these individuals who you're governed by performance metrics, right? So I know
Correct.
that like to be a successful DSP, you pretty much have to always hit your metrics, and then you receive bonuses and things like that. With the goal of achieving those metrics, you still have to deal with the human element. So how do you keep the humans motivated and, I guess, create structures so that they understand how to achieve those goals successfully?
Okay. That's a very interesting question. So one of the you're totally right about that. We are a company that runs on performance metrics. We have to constantly be hitting those metrics, and our main goal is always going to be to hit the metrics in the best way possible. And I think there's two sides to this question. So the first, on how do I try to make my employees and the individuals that work for me hit the metrics and act and operate in the way that the company wants them to operate. I think it comes back to what we were talking before, which is culture. I have, and I think I have created a strong culture around safety and around quality. And my employees know that I am very demanding of those metrics, and they know that um they constantly need to push harder on the to perform. And if they don't perform, then there's always consequences. It's not that there's consequences the first time that they don't perform. Our approach is always to talk to the driver or talk to the employee and let them know what's going on and why are they missing out. But then, if the things keep happening, the same mistakes keep happening, then one of the things I say, like, one time is a mistake, two times can be another mistake, but third time is your mistake. It's my mistake. I didn't do anything to prevent it. So I try to be very, very demanding on what they do, and they already know. Like, they since we gather every morning, all of our teams together, and we talk to them, we tell them a lot on what we are expecting from them, and they talk to each other, so they know, like, hey, this guy was suspended because he did X and Y and whatnot. And that conversation among them also helps them understand that there's consequences if they don't follow the instructions, if they don't follow the rule, and they are not doing their work properly, there's going to be always consequences. And I think that's very important. And in terms of letting them know what are we looking for when they're working and what metrics are they underperforming or whatnot, there are several tools that we use, that the drivers get their information every single week on how they perform. So it's not something that if they perform poorly, then we let them know. Everybody gets their performance metrics. They know exactly what they're doing and what they're not, and they already know our expectation. And we have very high expectations. To be honest with you, our expectations are to not to have everything fantastic. And if they don't have everything fantastic, then that's a big concern.
I mean, it sounds like accountability is the biggest thing, right? Like, and
Correct. That was the word I was looking for, but it,
yeah,
it is.
yeah,
It's accountability.
yeah. And I mean, especially because I always feel it's like this with managing. I don't want to say it's like having kids, but I mean, in some ways it is, right? So like you have these individuals who need guidance, and if you hold them accountable and you put some type of consequence in place and you adhere to that consequence, I always feel like that's what makes the reality of the culture come to life. So
100%. I
yeah.
couldn't agree more with that statement. 100%.
And so Rafael, going into kind of the technology piece, so you mentioned that you do have systems to help manage and understand how they're performing. What are some of the systems that you actually utilize for that?
So there are several companies that develop softwares specialized for DSPs, where they basically look at the performance of the employees and send coaching notifications. I am currently using one that's called 9 Minute App.
Nine
Uh,
minutes.
have you heard of it?
No, I have not. I'll look it up after. Yeah.
Okay, I can send you the link.
Okay.
Uh, it's very interesting because it lets you can send coaching notifications, and you can send coaching notifications weekly. Like, it knows about your weekly performance, or your team's weekly performance through the scorecard, but it also tracks your team's daily performance. So if you wanted to coach your drivers daily, you could. I don't go into that depth, to be honest with you. I follow more the weekly performance,
Is that
but my
is it integrated with Cortex? So it
it's not
does
integrated with Cortex.
no.
No,
Okay.
it's a different app, but I know that they download the information from Cortex.
Okay, so they're
Just
taking the
just
reports from Cortex, loading it into
correct.
this, and then on a weekly basis, it's like understanding and sending out the coaching.
Exactly.
Oh, okay.
Exactly.
How long ago did you first implement that?
I've been using it for around 8 months, 10 months.
Okay. Yeah. And so what is the difference in performance that you've seen from before and after?
It, I mean, it's been very, very high. But here's the thing too. Like if I measure, the thing's performance is constantly evolving. Not only for us but for Amazon as well. So Amazon does not hold us accountable for the same performance metrics that they did in 2019. They are constantly evolving, and they're obviously demanding more of us as well. The same way we do for our drivers and our team. But the the if I were to compare the performance metrics, the same performance metrics that I was measuring at the beginning, it's improved a lot, because I think that knowledge, it's key for our team to understand what they're doing and how they're messing up and whatnot. Most of my teams are really interested in knowing, uh, you know, what is it that they're doing wrong, and if
Yeah.
they have a tool where they can, see their performance every single week and understand what's going on and understand where they need to improve and whatnot, they will do it. I'm not saying it's 100% of the team, but I can tell you a high percentage of them are really interested and are really invested in the company, and they want to know and they want to learn and they want to improve. So it's helped a lot. Before we used to send weekly performance metrics, but we would do it manually, taking all the metrics through from the Cortex and whatnot. But that takes a lot of time out of my managers,
Yeah. No,
work.
I
So
got it. I got it. Right. Yeah. No, that's amazing. We'll have to talk more about that too, because I like that idea, and I would love to make it more like proactive, like so you don't even have to download, like it just it alerts, and sends it out, and just automatic.
correct.
Um, so, what does your software stack look like overall, Rafael? And I'm not looking for a harmless plugin for Happy Fleet, kind of, but from the beginning, from recruiting like through to the end of the day, like
Oh, there's
what
too many
software?
softwares.
There's too many. Really?
Yes.
Wow.
So for scheduling, we use an app called When I Work. That's the first
Okay.
first tool we use. Obviously, we use Cortex, and our drivers use the Amazon Flex app to do the deliveries. And they do the inspections of the vehicle through that app. But we also have another tool that we use for inspections of the vehicles, which is called Whip Around. We're currently looking into changing to another one that's AI powered. So every time, because for us the idea is, it's perfect that they do the inspection through the Flex app, which they should, and mark any damages. But we also want to hold them accountable for any damages to the vehicle. And Whip Around, and now the other tool that we're looking into, is much more convenient for holding accountable our drivers, because it identifies where there's a new damage, and it
Yep.
can tell you who made the damage.
Right. Gotcha. And so, because like when I go to Sixt and do rental car, when I leave, and I think most rental car places do this, they have like all the lights flash and they take pictures of the whole vehicle. And then I think when you return it, they do the comparison. So is it a similar software?
It is a very similar software.
Yeah.
It is. I mean, you have to take pictures. It's the same driver that's taking the pictures. It's prompting you to take several pictures, and the way on how to take the pictures. You have to take one of the front, one of the back, one of
Right.
each side, and whatnot. And through AI, it identifies where there's a new scratch, dent,
Right.
you
Yeah.
know,
Yeah. That's amazing.
crack, whatever it is, and it can be very small, and it will still identify it.
Wow.
And then, obviously, if I have a driver today doing the inspection to the vehicle, and it finds a new scratch on the vehicle, it's gonna identify who made the damage, because it was the person who drove the previous day. And then we, again, what we try to do is, first of all, we send an email to the person, letting them know, like, listen, this tool got this damage. This is a warning. You should not be returning a vehicle with a damage without properly reporting it, because for us, the most important part is, for them to be transparent. If you
Yeah,
hit the
are they even
vehicle,
aware? Right? Like, yeah.
please let me know. Correct.
Wow. Okay.
Um,
So like, if we start at the beginning, Rafael. So, I mean, I know you've used Happy Fleet in the past when your volume increases for hiring. Once it goes from Happy Fleet, then what does it look like as you go into onboarding?
okay, so for onboarding, I currently I use a company called AMP. They do my onboarding process. So to be honest with you, that's not a part that I'm very involved into the onboarding process,
Okay.
because they do the entire onboarding process. But I can tell you that they have their own platform where they onboard the employees. I can track how my employees are doing through the funnel, and at what stage of the onboarding process they're at. And they use that platform that they develop, and it's kind of a fountain platform, very
Right.
similar. Through that platform, our candidates get automatic text message, automatic emails, and whatnot. And then I can see the entire process on the onboarding part of it, and know exactly at what stage each individual is.
Got it.
But I do not engage too much with that part of the business.
Yeah. So, okay. So then they get onboarded, and then what do you have a software in place? I mean, I've heard of solutions like Hera or Loki, which do, I guess, more of the management. Well, I guess because you said you're using something else for scheduling, but is there something where do you have like an operating system that you're using for internal or no?
No, I mean, I started using another system. It was called DSP Workplace.
Okay. Yep. I've heard of them.
Uh, it was a very comprehensive tool. It seemed very interesting. I started using that tool, I want to say 3 years ago or 2.5 years ago. But one of the main issues that I had with that tool is that the scheduling tool they had was not as complete as when I work. So employees could not block out days that they couldn't work, and my drivers were used to already, because I don't have like a set schedule for my drivers. I'm very flexible on terms of scheduling. I just ask them, like, listen, leave everything open and block those days that that for certain you can't work. And based on their availabilities, I start working on the schedule. And they that's one of the things that they like about our company, and I didn't want to change that. So they don't have a set schedule, and with DSP Workplace, I couldn't do that. I couldn't, my drivers couldn't just block the days that they couldn't work. uh, there are several things I remember that tool was not there yet, and it didn't have all the specifics that when a work has. So I stopped using DSP Workplace and went back to when
Got
I
it.
work.
Okay. So with the emergence of AI, what are, I would say, how have you seen it impact your work, and where have you seen the greatest impact from AI in general? I mean, it could be you're using Claude, like anything involving AI. I'm interested to hear how you're utilizing it personally, and I guess in the business sense.
Okay, so I started using it. This was like 2 weeks ago.
Okay.
An app called, and I'm pretty sure you know about it, Base 44.
Base for okay, yes, to build. Yeah, it's a building. Yeah, to
It's a
bypass.
building. It's a building AI. It's amazing. It's very easy to use. I'm not a tech guy. I have no
Right.
idea on how to do things, but with Base 44, I've been able to create a tool that lets me, for example, I can upload the day of work of my drivers, because we what we do is we every single day send them an email letting them know like this is your route and this is your stage. With this tool, I've been able to upload both documents. It reads the information with the app that I created through Base 44. It reads the information and it sends my drivers all the information. I don't have to be composing the email and making sure cutting this, cutting there, and composing the email as it should. Right now, I mean, it's not finished yet because it has still some twerks that I have to do. But I mean, for me, that's been a game changer. With Base 44, you can do anything that you want. It's
It's
incredible.
it's incredible how quickly you
Incredible.
can create stuff nowadays. I mean, and that honestly for my own company, that's what I love is because I have one of the best engineers I've ever worked with as my CTO, and now him powered with AI, it's like giving him
It's a
steroids.
cheat code, huh?
Yeah, yeah, it's like a cheat code. Like all of a sudden, like he
Yeah.
doesn't he doesn't need the junior developers.
I
Like
know, I
things that
know.
would take literally years
And he
are
does it in a week.
not even. It's like even like an hour. Like it's
Yeah,
like
yeah, yeah, I know, I know. It's amazing. Again, I'm not a tech guy, but I've been using Base 44 for the past 2 or 3 weeks, and again, I like. Well, maybe this is not gonna work, but let me put this prompt, and then the app
yeah,
is ready. I'm like, what? This doesn't make
yeah,
sense. And
exactly.
then it walks you through how to if there's something that you cannot do internally through Base 44, it tells you how to connect with any other software that you need. And then for the emails, I know I had to use another platform called Resend. So Base 44 said like, okay, so since these users are not gonna be part of your app, but are gonna be external users, you have to use Resend. Open an account on Resend, do this, do that, and I'm like, this is amazing.
It's amazing.
It's incredible. It's incredible. So I think AI has been changing a lot, the way we do business, because myself, I'm somebody that's constantly trying to improve and automate most of the work that I can do that's automated. And through this tool, Base 44 and whatever not, there's so many things that you can do to automate your work. And you don't need a software engineer. You don't need a specialized company to do that. You
It's
have
amazing.
you have the tools that you need in the internet.
Yep. Yeah, and it's incredible because I don't even know where the future is going, but it's
I
getting
agree. I
yeah,
agree.
it's incredible. Where do you see the DSP model going in the next few years?
Well, it's funny. I think the DSP model is gonna keep growing. Okay, I do think that at a certain point, and I don't think it's short term. Probably it's gonna be much more automated as well. Like you're gonna have these self driving cars. Maybe you'll still have somebody delivering the packages and whatnot, but there's going to be the self-driving car going to each one of the addresses. You're going to get out, deliver the package, and go back to the vehicle. And at some point, it's going to be just a robot. The
Yeah,
one that's
humanoid
going to be
robot.
delivering the package.
Yeah,
Uh, but to be honest with you, that can be true with any industry. That's I mean, in the foreseeable future, I think that's the way it's going to be. But in the short term, I think there's still a lot of work to be done, and then I think the program is still going to rely on the DSPs and on the workers to get the job done. Um, Hopefully, when that time comes, we can all do something else and and
yeah, enjoy life more.
still be able still be
Yeah,
able to enjoy ourselves.
yes. What does success mean to you?
For me, it's helping other people grow and develop and be successful. I am happy to say that I've had the HR manager that started with me in the beginning. He started with me. He had a little bit of experience in HR, as I told you, but he had a dream of becoming a DSP. And after, I want to say, a year working with me, he went on and applied to the program. with all the knowledge that he gained and my support, and he got into the DSP program as well.
Wow, I love it.
And for me, that was like the most fulfilling day, it's one of the most fulfilling parts of my business. Helping people grow and achieve
Yeah,
their
no, that's
goals. I have my current operations manager went through um, the I forgot the name of the program, but it's a program where you can basically nominate an employee, a road to ownership. Sorry. So my current operations manager went through the road to ownership, and he was awarded a DSP as well. He's just waiting for the location, uh,
wow. Yeah.
but
Can that
he's
be
also.
anywhere, Rafael? Can that be anywhere? Or do they try and keep you near your home?
No, no. That can be anywhere. I
Wow.
mean, depends on what the person is looking for. But if they wanna move to Alabama and there's an opportunity to in Alabama, they will tell you, yeah, you can go to Alabama.
Yeah. Wow. We're almost up on time. So I think the last question I like to ask is, what is the strangest thing that you've experienced while running a DSP?
Strangest thing.
Or
That's a tough
unique
question.
experience, or yeah, something you did not expect?
That's a really tough question.
Is it, yeah. Okay.
Because I mean, I've had a lot of incidents and things that happened to me, but in terms of unique, um, I well, this didn't happen to me. This didn't happen to me. Um, but I remember, looking into the news one day, and again, it's not something that I experienced personally, but it's something that really scares a lot. Um, you know, it scares me a lot. Uh, and I've seen. Do you remember the day here in Miami where a couple of jewelry robbers went into a UPS truck, and the UPS driver started, they had a gun pointed at the head of the UPS driver, and they were going in the highway, and there was like a chase. Police were chasing this
Yeah,
guy.
that's crazy.
The
Yeah.
UPS driver ended up being dead on the process.
Uh, okay.
He got killed.
Yeah.
Uh, so for me, it's like, those types of situations are the things that really scare me out, and that I try to avoid and be, tell my drivers, be safe, be try
Yeah.
to be, lock the key. You can never know what's going to happen, so you have to
Yeah.
be very aware of your surroundings. Again, it's not something that happened to me, but this happened a couple of years ago, and I remember it really shocked me. Like, that was a very sad news for the UPS driver.
Yeah. I mean, it's horrible, and hope to God that none of that stuff ever happens to any of your teammates or any other teammates. And I totally understand, like, that culture of like safety, and especially, I guess, people do realize that there's incredible items inside of these vans. So I can
Correct.
totally understand why people want to
I
grab
mean,
them.
there's a lot of value in what in the packages that
Yeah.
we deliver. So
Yeah. So let's ask one more question and on a more positive note. So, what's something about being a DSP owner you wish more people understood?
I wish, well, I don't know if I wish people understood, but one of the positive things about being a DSP is that you're able to work with a lot of great guys. And let me tell you something. When I started the business, I said I was doing everything by myself. I didn't have a manager or whatnot. I purposely didn't bring a manager on board because I wanted to give people the opportunity to grow within the company.
Ah, gotcha.
And one of the things that surprises me is you never know who the person is gonna be that's gonna stand out.
Yeah,
Like,
that's cool.
you sometimes have a lot of prejudice in your head, and you know you even though I try to be as objective as possible, you know, you sometimes sometimes people are very fast to judge. But it's amazing, the persons that you maybe didn't expect are the ones that, you know, stand out and show you that they are the most capable and the most relentless, and the ones willing to go, you know, the extra mile. So it's for me, that's surprising, and that's something that I've loved, working with people, and you know, getting surprised by the spirit that they bring in.
I love it. I mean, that's such a great way to end this because I do love it's like you never know who you hire who's going to
You have no
become that
idea.
person that changes your business and changes your life. So
Correct.
that's incredible, and that's just one of the benefits of being like a owner, right, or an
It is.
entrepreneur.
It
Yeah,
definitely is, and I think again, that's for me the most fulfilling part, is that, you know, to get to give these persons the opportunity to grow, because maybe they've never had that opportunity. By given the
right.
opportunity, they can show a lot.
Yeah. Well, Rafael, I want to thank you so much for the time, and this has been
No,
very
thank you so much for the
insightful.
invitation, Robert. It's always a pleasure talking to you.
Yeah, and so I'll share this with you. Let me just stop it here.